There is a line outside a building on a Friday night. A velvet rope, a doorman in black, a bass line thumping through the concrete before you even reach the door. Inside, hundreds of people are paying to stand in a dark room and listen to music they could stream for free at home. That is the image. Loud, expensive, glamorous, a little mysterious. The kind of business that looks like it prints money simply by existing. Here is what actually happens. The bar and nightclub industry in the United States pulls in close to $39 billion a year, and the biggest clubs on earth pay a single DJ more to spin records for one night than most people make in a year. And at the exact same time, roughly 6 out of every 10 nightclubs that open will fail within their first year. Same velvet rope, same sound system, same bottle of vodka behind the bar. Completely opposite financial outcomes. Today, we are going inside the real economics of one of the most misunderstood businesses in the country. Before we talk about money, you need to understand what a nightclub is actually selling. Most people assume it is alcohol. Walk in, buy a drink, the club marks it up, everybody goes home happy. That is not really the business. A nightclub sells the exact same square footage to 3 completely different customers at 3 completely different prices for the exact same night. Someone standing by the bar, someone with a wristband from a guest list, and someone sitting at a reserved table who just spent more on one night out than most people spend on rent. Almost none of the club's real profit comes from that first customer. Nearly all of it comes from the third. And understanding why is the thread that runs through this entire business. Let us start before a single customer walks through the door. Opening a nightclub is genuinely one of the most expensive small businesses you can start. A full build-out, sound system, lighting rig, bar equipment, furniture can easily run $250,000 to $2 million depending on size and city, and a serious venue with a proper stage, PA system, and production level often lands well into the mid-6 figures before the doors ever open. Renovation alone can run over $100 per square foot, which means a modest 5,000 square foot room can eat up $600,000 before you have bought a single bottle of liquor. Then there is the liquor license. And this is where the business quietly splits by geography. In some states, a license costs less than $2,000. In California, the same piece of paper can run anywhere from $12,000 to $400,000, depending on the county, because many cities cap the number of licenses available and force new operators to buy one from someone already holding it. Ad permits, entertainment licenses, fire safety systems, and music licensing fees, and total licensing costs alone can run $20,000 to well over $100,000 before a single drink is poured. Most serious operators plan to keep close to $750,000 in reserve just to survive the gap between opening night and the first steady month of real revenue. This brings us to why banks are so nervous about this industry. Small business loans for bars and nightclubs get approved at roughly half the rate of loans for restaurants, because lenders classify nightlife as a high-risk category. And they're not wrong to be cautious. Roughly 60% of nightclubs close within their first 3 years, a failure rate noticeably higher than restaurants. The room looks the same as any other business. The risk profile does not. Here is where the fantasy and the reality really start to separate. People assume that once the club is full, the money takes care of itself. In reality, a packed room and a profitable room are not the same thing. And this brings us to the single biggest misunderstanding about this entire industry. The bar at the front of the club, the one everybody sees, the one where people are paying for drinks one at a time, is barely where the real money is. That part of the business runs on razor-thin math. The actual cost of the liquor poured typically eats up somewhere between 18 and 24% of every dollar in drink sales, and labor alone can swallow another 30% or more of total revenue on top of that. Add rent, insurance, security, and utilities, and a nightclub running purely on walk-up drink sales is often left with a genuinely thin sliver of profit. Across the industry as a whole, the average net profit margin sits somewhere between 2 and 6%, which is barely healthier than a typical restaurant, and far thinner than most people assume for a business known for cash-stuffed velvet booths. So where does the real money actually come from? It comes from a completely different pricing system operating in the exact same room, and it is called bottle service. Instead of buying drinks one at a time, a group reserves a table and commits to a minimum spend, sometimes $300 at a small club, sometimes well over $10,000 for a prime table at a major venue on a big night. In exchange, they get a private space, a dedicated server, and the simple social status of not standing in line. The markup on the alcohol itself inside these packages regularly runs somewhere between 5 and 10 times retail, and in some cases climbs past 1,000% above cost. One bottle that might sell for $40 or $50 in a liquor store can anchor a table package worth several $100s once you add the space, the service, and the exclusivity. And critically, pricing on that space is not fixed. Clubs commonly start the night with a lower base price for tables booked in advance, then raise the price as the room fills, sometimes doubling it by the time the club is at capacity later in the night. The empty table sitting there at 11 o'clock is worth far less than that exact same table at 1 in the morning, so operators price it like an airline seat, not like a bar tab. Now let us talk about how clubs actually get people into that room in the first place, because this is not left to chance either. Almost every successful club relies on a network of promoters, people who are not employees in the traditional sense, but independent operators who build guest lists and bring in customers night after night. The economics are simple. The club pays the promoter a commission for every guest who walks in and checks in under their name. And in exchange, that guest often gets in free or at a reduced cover charge. It sounds like a favor. It is actually a calculated crowd engineering tool. An empty room at 10 o'clock signals to everyone walking past that the club is failing that night. A packed room by 11 creates the opposite impression, one that pulls in the paying, walk-up crowd who see a line outside and assume something worth seeing is happening inside. The guest list is not generosity. It is the club manufacturing its own momentum and paying commission to do it. This brings us to the most extreme version of this entire strategy, the one playing out at the very top of the industry in cities like Las Vegas. To draw the biggest crowds and to justify the highest bottle service prices, the largest clubs compete for world-famous DJs, and the fees involved are almost hard to believe. A genuinely top-tier headline DJ can command a low seven-figure fee for a single night and residency contracts, where an artist commits to a set number of dates across a season, can run up to $300,000 a show. One resort reportedly signed a 2-year residency deal worth $60 million, working out to roughly $600,000 for each of 100 performances. That same venue's nightclub shut its doors after only 7 months, having lost more than $13 million in under a year. The DJ arms race can fill a room. It does not automatically make that room profitable. It just raises the stakes on every single night needing to work. Now, let us put real numbers around a normal club, not a Las Vegas megaclub, to see how this actually plays out. A mid-sized nightclub built out for around $600,000, plus licensing, insurance, and opening reserves, might represent a total investment near $1 million. On a strong Friday or Saturday night, that club might pull in anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 in combined cover charge, bar sales, and bottle service. Average that across a full month, including the slower weeknights most clubs barely bother opening for, and a typical club nets somewhere around $25,000 to $30,000 a month in total revenue. Liquor cost eats roughly 20% of that. Labor, security, and management eat another 30% or more. Rent, insurance, licensing renewals, and marketing eat much of what remains. What is left over in a genuinely well-run club is often the difference between a 5% margin and a 50% margin, and that difference comes almost entirely from one variable. How much of the room's revenue is coming from that back corner of reserved tables versus the crowd standing at the bar? Run the week scenario. A new club opens 2 blocks away. The DJ everyone wanted moves to a bigger venue across town. The crowd that used to fill the VIP tables on Thursday nights starts showing up somewhere else instead. Walk-up bar revenue barely moves because it never generates real profit anyway. But bottle service revenue, the part of the business actually carrying the whole operation, evaporates. Rent, insurance, and the loan on the build-out do not shrink along with it. This is why nightclubs, more than almost any other hospitality business, live or die on trend, not just on execution. A restaurant with good food can survive for decades on quiet consistency. A nightclub's entire pricing model depends on being, right now, tonight, the place people want to be seen. And that is the real secret behind every packed nightclub you have ever walked past on a Friday night. Behind that velvet rope, behind that line of people waiting to get in, sits a business running two completely different economies in the same room at the same time. One barely survives on thin margins and constant turnover. The other, sitting quietly in the reserve tables near the DJ booth, is where almost the entire profit of the night actually lives.